How did one promotion announcement turn into me getting divorce papers in my office lobby? Why did my husband stay calm for weeks, then hit me with a legal filing the same day my manager acted like he barely knew me? What was I supposed to do when the whole building watched me lose my win in real time? My name is Fleda Harrington, and I used to think I was a reasonable wife. I had a job, a child, and a husband who did not shout or drink or gamble. People always said I was lucky. I learned to smile when they said it, but inside I felt small. Luck sounded like I had no power. I wanted power. I worked as a marketing coordinator at a software company called North Pine Systems. It was not a famous place, but it had glass walls, a big lobby, and people who loved titles. Titles mattered there more than sleep. I had been there 5 years, and I could do the work fast. I knew the clients, the numbers, and the small problems that ruined deadlines. Still, every time a new project lead role opened, my name stayed on the maybe list. My manager, Keene, acted like he was calm. He was always calm when he wanted something. He wore clean shirts, spoke slowly, and looked at people like they were waiting for his permission to breathe. He told me I had potential. He also told me I had to show more leadership. It sounded fair, but it never had a clear end. I started to feel like I was running on a treadmill. At home, Evan asked about my day every night. He worked as a school counselor. He listened to children cry, then came home and listened to me talk about meetings. He did not complain much. That was the problem. His calm made me feel like my stress was not real. Sometimes I wanted him to be dramatic so I could feel important. One Monday, I stayed late to fix a deck for a product pitch. I did not have to stay late. I could have finished the next morning, but I wanted to be seen. I wanted the office lights to remember me. When the floor got quiet, Brad walked past my desk and stopped. He asked why I was still there. I said the pitch deck needed to be perfect. He said he liked my drive and asked if I wanted feedback in his office. I told him I did, and I followed him. His office had a glass wall, but the blinds could close. He did not close them. He leaned back and talked like we were equals. He said the company needed stars, not helpers. He said I could be a star if I took bigger risks. I asked what kind of risks he meant. He said he meant visibility and trust. He said people had to feel close to you to fight for you. He looked at me for a long time while he said it. I left his office feeling hot in my face. I told myself it was stress. I told myself it was ambition. I did not call it anything else. The next day, Nina Park from my team asked why Brad was suddenly into me. She smiled when she said it, like it was a joke, but her eyes were sharp. I told her he was into results, and I had results. She laughed and said I was finally playing the game. That phrase stayed with me. Playing the game. At the end of the week, Brad's assistant sent a message about a rooftop happy hour. It was optional, but it was really required. People who did not go always stayed invisible. I told Evan I had a work event. He asked if I could be home before Mira went to bed. I said I would try. At the bar, the city looked soft and far away. The wind made everyone lean closer. Brad stood near the heater like it belonged to him. He lifted his drink when he saw me, and he waved me over. He asked how I was holding up. I said I was fine and ready for the next big project. He said he had noticed my extra effort. Then he said, loud enough for others to hear, that I was the kind of person the company should invest in. People turned their heads. Nina raised her eyebrows like I had won something. I felt the attention hit me like warm light. I liked it too much. I told myself it was normal to like it. I told myself Evan would like it too if he cared about my future. Brad asked if I wanted to talk about a plan after the crowd thinned. I said yes, and I stayed close to him the rest of the night. I watched how people looked at us. I liked how they looked. It made me feel chosen. When I got home, the kitchen was dark except for the stove clock. Evan was at the table with his laptop open. He looked up and asked if it was a good night. I said it was. and I said the team needed me. He asked why my messages were slow to send. I said the roof had bad signal. Mira was asleep. Her backpack was by the door, packed for school. Evan had done that, like always. I should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt annoyed, like he was showing me how little he needed me. He asked if I ate. I said I had snacks. He asked if I was coming to bed. I said I had to answer one more email. He stood up and said he was tired. His voice was flat, and it made me want to poke him. I told him he should be proud of me, because I was finally getting noticed. He asked what noticed meant. I said it meant my manager trusted me with bigger work. He asked if this meant more late nights. I said it would mean more money later, and I said he should stop acting like I was doing something wrong. He said he was not accusing me of anything. He said he just wanted the truth about my schedule. I told him he always questioned me like I was a teenager. I told him it was disrespectful. He looked at me like he did not recognize me for a second. I went to the sink and filled a glass of water, just to have something to do. I watched him quietly close his laptop. I saw his phone on the table, face up. A notification lit the screen for a second, and I saw a calendar reminder. It said, downtown 9:25 a.m. My stomach tightened. Evan never had meetings downtown. He worked at a school. He did not dress up for work. He did not need downtown. I asked what that reminder was. He said it was just something he had to take care of. I asked what kind of thing. He said it was personal. He said it in a calm way that made the word feel like a wall. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself he was being dramatic to make me feel guilty. I told myself he was probably meeting a friend or buying something silly. Then I remembered how he had looked at me when I called him disrespectful. I remembered the flatness in his voice. I went upstairs and checked on Mira. She was curled on her side, hair on her cheek. I stood there and waited for guilt to come. It did not come. What came was anger. I thought Evan was trying to control me with mystery. I thought he wanted me to beg. Back in the bedroom, Evan was already under the blanket. He asked if I was coming to sleep. I said I was tired too. He said good night. He did not reach for me. I lay down and stared at the ceiling. I told myself I was building a better life for all of us. I told myself respect follows results, and I had results. Then I heard Evan's phone vibrate softly on the nightstand, and I watched the screen light up again with that reminder. Downtown, 9:25 a.m. The next morning, Evan woke up before me. I heard the shower, then the quiet sounds of a lunchbox closing. When I came into the kitchen, he had already made Mira's oatmeal. He did not look angry. That almost felt worse, like he was saving his anger for later. He asked if I wanted coffee. I said yes, like nothing happened. He asked what time I would be home. I said it depended on meetings. He nodded once and did not argue. I watched him wipe the counter, in slow lines, like he was making the room neat on purpose. Mira came in and asked if I could pick her up after school. I said I would try. Evan looked at me, and he asked if my try meant yes or no. I said yes, and I made my voice sound warm. I hated that he made me choose clear words. On the drive to the office, I told myself that his downtown reminder was a trick. I told myself he wanted me to worry so I would behave. I even laughed alone in the car, like I had solved a puzzle. I said in my head that Evan was predictable. At work, the air smelled like printer toner and sweet lobby coffee. The open-plan floor was loud with keyboards and small talk. Nina rolled her chair to my desk and asked if I had fun at the rooftop bar. I said it was fine and mostly work talk. She leaned in and said Brad had been smiling at me like I was a secret. I told her it was called having talent. She grinned and said I was finally learning. Around 10, Brad messaged me and asked if I could step into his office. He did not use words like urgent. He never did. He acted like he owned time. I walked to his glass-walled office with my laptop and a notebook. The blinds were half open. He pointed at the chair and asked how I was feeling after the event. I said I was focused and ready for whatever he needed. He said he liked that answer. Then he asked if I wanted to move faster than the usual process. I asked what faster meant. He said it meant I would be trusted with a big launch campaign. He said trust was personal, not just professional. I understood the tone, and I pretended I did not. I asked what steps I needed to take. He said I needed to be available, flexible, and loyal. I asked if he could put the plan in writing, just so I could track goals. He smiled like I was cute. He said writing made things cold, and we should keep it human. I told him I agreed, even though I did not. I told myself that if he would not write it, it was because it was special. That was the story I chose. He stood up and walked around his desk, and he stopped too close to my chair. He asked if my husband supported my growth. I said Evan supported me, but he worried too much. Brad said worry was a form of control. He said successful people did not ask for permission. I nodded like he was teaching me a truth. When I left his office, my face felt tight, like I had been smiling too hard. I sat down and answered emails fast, like speed could make my choices clean. That afternoon, Jonah Sloan from HR sent a calendar invite titled Quick Check-In. It was for the next week. No agenda. I stared at it longer than I should have. Nina noticed and asked what it was. I said it was routine. She shrugged and said HR loved paperwork more than oxygen. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was valuable and untouchable. I stayed late again, even though I promised Mira. I texted Evan and said a client call ran long. He asked if I could still make pickup. I said I was sorry and asked if he could cover it. He replied that he would. He did not add a sad face or a complaint. That annoyed me, because it gave me nothing to fight. By the time I shut down my computer, most desks were dark. The office lights hummed like they were tired too. In the parking garage, my heels clicked on the concrete. The air was cold and smelled like dust and car oil. I heard footsteps behind me and turned. It was a co-worker from the design team, Marla Jensen. She held her keys and looked surprised to see me. She asked if I was still working. I said yes, and joked that my job loved to eat my evenings. She asked if Brad was still upstairs too. I paused a second too long. Then I said I did not know. Her eyes moved to the elevator doors like she was counting. She said she had seen Brad's car still here earlier. I laughed and said managers lived at the office. She nodded, but she did not laugh back. She said goodnight and walked away. I got into my car and sat there without starting it. My hands were cold on the wheel. I told myself Marla was jealous. I told myself people always judged women who climbed. I told myself this was sexism, not consequences. At home, Mira was already in pajamas. Evan was reading to her on the couch. When he looked up, he did not glare. He just said hello. Mira asked why I missed pickup. I said work was busy and I said I would make it up to her. Evan said nothing, but he turned one page slower than normal. After Mira went to bed, Evan asked if we could talk for a minute. He said it in the same calm tone he used with students. I hated that tone. It made me feel like the unstable one. He asked why my hours changed so suddenly. I said I was finally being given bigger tasks. He asked who was giving them. I said my department, and I kept it vague. He asked if Brad was involved. I said yes, because he was my manager, and that was normal. Evan asked if I was happy. I said I was proud. He asked if I could be proud without disappearing from our family nights. I told him he was making it dramatic. I told him Mira was fine. I said kids needed to learn that work mattered. He asked if I heard myself. I said he was trying to shame me. He said he was trying to understand. I told him his understanding felt like a leash. He did not shout. He just looked down at his phone, like he was making a note in his head. The next day after work, I went to my sister Tessa's apartment. Tessa lived in a small place with clean white walls and plants she actually watered. She opened the door and said my face looked tense. I told her everything was fine, but Evan was acting weird. She asked what I meant by weird. I said he kept asking questions like he did not trust me. She asked if he had a reason not to trust me. I said no. I said I was working hard, and he was making it about himself. Tessa asked if I was close with Brad. I said close in a professional way. She asked if I was telling the whole truth. I said yes, but my voice came out too fast. She said my yes sounded like a speech. I told her Evan had a downtown reminder on his phone. I said it like it proved he was hiding something too. Tessa said one reminder was not the same as a pattern. She asked if I had a pattern. I told her she was being judgmental. She asked if I wanted her help or her approval. I said I wanted her to support me. She said support did not mean lying. I left her apartment irritated. In my car, I called my mother. Paula answered and asked how her rising star was doing. I told her Evan was being difficult. Paula said men hated when women got power. She told me to stop explaining myself. She told me to act confident, because confidence made people believe you. When I got home, Evan was in the kitchen rinsing a cup. 2 mugs sat on the counter, spaced apart like they did not want to touch. He asked if Tessa was okay. I said yes. He asked what you two talked about. I said sister things. He nodded and said he had to take a call. His phone buzzed, and the screen showed no caller ID. He walked to the porch and closed the door behind him. I watched through the glass and tried to read his face. I told myself he was planning something small and petty. I told myself he wanted to scare me. But his shoulders stayed relaxed, and he listened more than he spoke. I stood in the kitchen with my coat still on, and for the first time I wondered if his calm was not weakness. It looked like decision. The following week felt like a race that everyone could watch. My name started showing up in meetings I used to only listen in on. Brad asked me to join a planning call with senior leads, and he introduced me like I was already important. He said I had fresh energy, and he said the team needed people who did not hesitate. I told myself I earned it. I told myself I did not need permission from Evan or anyone else. On Thursday, the company held a celebration for the quarter results. They rented a bright event space near the river with tall windows and standing tables. There were balloons in company colors and a banner that said, "We did it," like we were children who cleaned our rooms. People wore name badges even though we all knew each other. It was that kind of place. Nina found me near the drink station and asked if I was excited. I said I was calm. She said calm people were lying and told me to enjoy the moment. She also said Brad had been asking where I was. She said it with a grin that made it feel like gossip, not work. When Brad walked over, he did not greet the group. He greeted me. He asked if I was ready for the next stage. I said I was more than ready. He laughed and said I liked that word. He told me to stay close because he had good news later. People noticed. They always notice when power leans toward someone. A photographer from the office lifted a camera and asked for team shots. Someone pulled me toward the front without asking. I let them. I stood where I could be seen. Brad stood too close to my shoulder, and I did not step away. I told myself it was normal. I told myself it was strategic. Evan arrived later than I expected. He came straight from the school, still in his plain jacket. He looked out of place, next to the polished outfits and the loud laughter. He asked if this was the right room. I said yes and kissed his cheek quickly. He asked who all these people were. I said they were my co-workers and leaders, and I told him to smile. He smiled, but his eyes scanned the room like he was taking attendance. Nina came over and asked if Evan was excited for my big moment. Evan asked what big moment she meant. Nina said I was basically a lock for the next promotion. She said it like it was already public truth. Evan looked at me and asked if that was real. I said it was likely, and I said he should be happy instead of suspicious. He said he was happy if it was real. He said he just did not want me to get hurt. I heard the word hurt, and it made me angry. I did not want to be treated like a fragile thing. I told him I was not a child, and that he did not need to worry. He nodded, but his jaw tightened. He asked if we could go home early because Mira had a school day. I said we could not, because leaving early would look bad. I said he could go if he was tired. I said it like I was being generous. Really, I wanted him to feel small. Brad stepped onto a small stage area with a mic. He thanked everyone and praised the teams. Then he started naming standouts. When he said my name, he paused a little, like he wanted the room to feel it. People clapped louder than normal. Nina cheered like it was a concert. Brad asked me to come up. I walked up with my shoulders back. I felt the eyes on me like heat. I looked down and saw Evan clapping, but his smile did not match his eyes. Brad said I had grit and loyalty. He said I stayed late and carried pressure. He said I deserved bigger things soon. He did not say the word promotion, but he let the room say it for him. Then he handed me the mic and asked if I wanted to say anything. I did not plan a speech, but I liked attention too much to refuse. I said I was grateful and that I worked hard. I said I believed in performance and results. I said my family supported me, even when it was hard for them. That last part was a small knife, and I knew it. I saw Evan's mouth flatten. Someone in the crowd lifted a phone, filming. Another person raised their glass and called for a toast. The room started chanting my name in a silly way, like they were making a hero out of a coworker. I loved it. I hated myself for loving it, so I told myself it was deserved. After the speeches, Brad stayed close to me again. He asked if I could meet him tomorrow morning to finalize next steps. I said yes. He said we should keep it quiet until it was official. I said I understood. He leaned in like he was telling me a secret, and his breath hit my ear. Evan watched. He did not storm over. He did not make a scene. He just watched like he was learning something. On the ride home, Evan asked what finalize next steps meant. I said it meant planning the next campaign. He asked why it had to be quiet. I said because jealousy existed and people tried to sabotage success. I told him he should know that, because he worked with teens. He did not answer. At home, Mira ran to the door in pajamas and asked where I was. I said I had a work event and I was praised. Mira asked if Dad clapped for me. Evan said yes, he clapped. Mira smiled and said I was famous. That weekend, we went to a family restaurant for my father's birthday. It had a long table and loud plates, and the kind of lighting that made everyone look tired. My mother sat near the center like she owned the room. Tessa came too, and she looked cautious, like she could feel a storm coming. Paula asked about my job, loud enough for other tables to hear. I told her the celebration went well. Paula asked if the promotion was official. I said it was close. Paula laughed and said she always knew I was destined for more than some quiet domestic life. Evan's hand tightened around his water glass. Tessa looked at me like she wanted to stop me, but she did not. Paula asked Evan if he was proud. Evan said he was proud of hard work. Paula asked if he was proud of my ambition too, or if he still wanted me at home folding towels. People laughed. My cousins laughed. Nina was not there, but it still felt like my work crowd had followed me. Evan said he never asked me to fold towels. He said he asked me to be present with our child. Paula said that sounded like control. I jumped in fast. I told Paula that Evan struggled with strong women. I said he liked me better when I was smaller. Evan looked at me and asked if I really believed that. I said yes, because I wanted to believe it. I needed that story. If I was the victim of his insecurity, then I was not the villain of my choices. Tessa asked me to slow down. She said this was Dad's dinner. I said I was just being honest. Evan asked if honesty mattered to me now. His voice stayed quiet, but it carried. Paula told Evan he was ruining the mood. I told Evan he always made things about himself. I said he could not handle my success. I watched his face, hoping for anger. I wanted him to snap, so everyone would see I was right. He did not snap. He put his napkin down and said he would take Mira to the car for a minute. Mira asked why. Evan said she was tired and needed air. He stood up and walked away without touching me. As he walked past, I heard a soft beep from his phone, like a recording starting or a timer being set. I turned my head fast, but he was already moving toward the exit with Mira's hand in his. The table went quiet for a second. Then Paula started talking again, louder, filling the space like noise could erase what just happened. I laughed too, like I was not bothered. I said Evan was being dramatic again. But when we got home later, I climbed the stairs behind Evan. He did not rush. He moved in a steady line, like he had decided something. At the stairwell landing, I saw him glance at his phone screen, and I saw a small red dot icon near the top. He did not look at me, he just kept going, and the silence felt heavier than any argument. The next week, I tried to act like nothing changed. I told myself the dinner was just a bad moment. I told myself Evan would cool down if I stayed confident. Confidence always worked on people who wanted peace. On Monday, I went to the gym early, not because I needed it, but because it looked disciplined. I posted a selfie in the lobby mirror with a caption about focus. Nina liked it within 2 minutes. Brad viewed it and did not react, which made me check my phone again and again like a habit. After work that day, I went to Mira's school pickup line. I rarely went now, but I wanted to be seen doing it. I wanted a picture in my head where I was the good parent. Cars crawled forward in a slow snake. Parents stared at their phones. The school doors opened and closed like a small machine. Mira climbed into the back seat and asked why Dad had been quiet lately. I said Dad was just tired from work. She asked if Dad was mad at me. I told her no, and I said grown-ups sometimes had busy weeks. She asked if we were still a family. I said yes, and I made my voice sweet. My hands gripped the wheel too hard. At home, Evan was in the kitchen, cutting apples into even slices. He asked if pickup went okay. I said yes. He asked if Mira seemed fine. I said she was fine. Mira sat at the table and did homework. Evan did not talk about the restaurant night. That silence felt like a trap. Later, Evan said his parents invited us over. He said they wanted to see Mira and talk. I asked why they needed to talk. He said it was about family routines. He used the word routines like it mattered more than feelings. We drove to his parents' house the next evening. Their living room smelled like tea and clean fabric. Everything was in its place, like nobody was allowed to fall apart there. Ruth opened the door and hugged Mira first. Then she hugged Evan. Then she hugged me, but her arms were light, like a polite rule. Caleb asked how work was going. I said it was exciting, and I was being recognized. Ruth asked if the recognition required me to be away from Mira so often. I said it was temporary and for a better future. Ruth said a better future still needed a stable present. Her voice stayed calm, but it was firm. Evan sat on the sofa and watched Mira play with a puzzle. He looked tired, but he also looked steady, like he slept better without arguing. That bothered me. I wanted him messy. I wanted him desperate. Ruth asked Evan if he was managing the mornings. Evan said he was, and he said Mira was doing well with clear schedules. Ruth asked what the schedule was now. Evan explained it like a simple plan: school, dinner, bedtime. He spoke slowly, like he was making sure every word was clean. I interrupted and said I could do more once the next project finished. Ruth asked when that would be. I said soon. Caleb asked if soon meant weeks or months. I said it depended. Caleb nodded like he heard a familiar excuse. Ruth said they were willing to help with Mira any time, but the adults needed to stop using Mira as a pressure point. She said Mira needed peace, not tension. I told Ruth I was not creating tension. I said Evan was the one acting cold. Ruth looked at Evan and asked if he was acting cold. Evan said he was trying to stay respectful. I said respectful felt like punishment. I said Evan was making me look like the bad one by being quiet. Caleb asked if the issue was Evan's tone or my choices. I laughed and said choices were complex. I said People judged women for doing what men did every day. Caleb said he was not judging my ambition. He said he was concerned about honesty and stability. That word honesty hit me like an insult. I told myself it was unfair. I told myself nobody cared when I worked hard for years. Now they cared because I finally got attention. On the drive home, Evan asked if I heard what his mother said. I said she blamed me. He said she blamed behavior, not a person. I said that was the same thing. He did not fight back. He just said he wanted Mira to have a calm house. The next day, I tried a new tactic. I tried kindness like a costume. I cooked dinner early and left it warm. I asked Evan about his day. He answered in short lines. He asked about my day too, but his eyes stayed on Mira more than on me. That weekend, we went to the supermarket together because we needed groceries for the school week. I told myself normal errands meant normal marriage. The store was loud with carts and bright lights. Mira sat in the cart seat and asked for cereal with a cartoon character on the box. I said yes, because I wanted to feel generous. At the checkout, I pulled out my card like I always did. I liked paying in public. It made me look responsible. The cashier scanned items fast. The total came up higher than I expected. I still tapped my card with confidence. The terminal beeped and showed a message. The cashier said it did not go through and asked if I had another payment method. People behind us shifted and sighed. Mira asked what happened. I smiled too wide and said the machine was slow. I tapped again, trying not to show my face. This time it worked. The cashier said it was fine now. I laughed and said technology was annoying. Evan did not laugh. He looked at the receipt when it printed, like the numbers were a story. In the car, I asked Evan if he changed something with the account. He said he did not change anything. He said sometimes the bank flagged large totals. I said it never flagged me before. He said he did not know. His voice stayed flat. At home, I opened my banking app and checked. Everything looked normal, but I felt watched anyway. I told myself Evan was trying to control money to control me. I told myself it was proof he was the problem. Still, the app history showed small alerts I had not noticed before. I stared at them like they were new stains. That night, Mira asked if she could sleep in our bed because she had a bad dream. Evan said she could stay for a while, but she needed to sleep in her room after she felt calm. He explained it gently. Mira asked if Dad would leave. Evan said he would not leave her. I waited for him to add, "I will not leave you," to me. He did not. He tucked Mira in and came back to the hallway. He asked if we could talk after Mira fell asleep. I said yes, but I already planned to turn it into a fight where I looked right. When Mira was asleep, Evan said he wanted clearer rules, pickup times, bedtime routines, and less late-night work unless it was truly required. He said Mira was starting to ask questions. I said Mira asked questions because he acted strange. I said if he stopped acting cold, Mira would relax. He asked if I could admit that my choices affected Mira too. I said my choices were for Mira. I said a promotion meant a better life. Evan asked if a better life was worth losing trust. I said trust was flexible when people loved each other. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said he did not want to argue in front of Mira anymore. He said he would keep things calm. I asked if he was threatening me. He said no. He said he was stating a boundary. I went to the kitchen for water, pretending I did not care. On the counter, 2 mugs sat apart again, like little signs. In the study, I heard a faint hum, like a shredder or a printer warming up. Then I heard a soft click, like a drawer locking. Evan walked past me with his phone in his hand. I asked who he was texting so late. He said he was following up on something personal. He did not give more. I told myself he was being petty. I told myself he wanted me scared, but he did not look petty. He looked organized. And I hated that more than anger. By Monday, I could feel the shift at work like a draft under a door. People still smiled at me, but the smiles had less warmth. They looked at my badge when I walked past, like they were checking if I still belonged. Brad was the biggest change. He used to answer my messages in minutes. Now he waited hours. When he did reply, he used short lines that sounded like templates. He started saying things like we should keep everything professional and align with policy. He never used words like policy before. It made my stomach tighten, but I told myself he was just being careful because success makes enemies. That morning, I went to the gym lobby again before work. I did not even break a real sweat. I just walked on the treadmill long enough to take a photo that looked disciplined. I posted it with a caption about consistency. It was not about health. It was about control. If I looked controlled, people would believe I was fine. In the locker area, Nina texted me and asked if I saw the new org chart draft. I said no. She said someone told her my name was on it, but the title was not the one Brad teased. She added a laughing emoji like it was funny. I stared at the message and felt heat in my neck. I told myself Nina was exaggerating. I told myself people love drama. At the office, Jonah from HR stood near the hallway and waited like he knew my schedule. He asked if I had a few minutes later for the check-in. I said yes and asked what it was about. He said it was routine and it would be quick. He kept his voice friendly, but his eyes stayed careful. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. A spreadsheet was already up from last week, but I had no memory of leaving it open. I told myself it was a glitch. I told myself nothing was wrong. Then I noticed my computer had a small cloud sync notification in the corner. File uploaded successfully. No file name, just the message. I stared at it like it was a threat. Brad came out of his office and walked past without stopping at my desk. That never happened. He usually made a small show of checking on me. I stood up and followed him into the hall. I asked if he had a minute. He said he was heading to a meeting. I asked if we were still talking about next steps. He said we were focusing on team needs. I asked if my promotion was still on track. He said promotions were a leadership decision, not a personal promise. I asked why he was talking like that. He said he was being responsible. I told him I felt blindsided. He said nobody was blindsided by process. That word process hit me. It sounded like he had been coached. I told myself Evan was behind it, even though it made no sense. I needed someone to blame. At lunch, Nina sat with me and acted like she was helping. She asked if Evan was still weird. I said yes. I said he was cold and passive-aggressive. Nina said cold men always had a plan. I laughed and said Evan was not that smart. The moment I said it, I felt something twist inside me, but I pushed it down. When the HR check-in time came, I walked down the hallway to the small room near the copy station. I could smell paper and toner. Jonah sat with a notebook, and another person from compliance sat beside him with a neutral face. Jonah asked how things were going with my workload. I said I was handling it and I loved pressure. He asked if I felt supported by my manager. I said yes, because I did not want to sound weak. Then he asked if I ever felt pressured to attend events or meetings outside normal hours. I blinked and asked what he meant. He said he meant any situation that felt tied to career opportunity. I understood what he was asking, and I hated him for asking it. It made me feel like the room was trying to place me in a story I did not write. I said nobody pressured me. I said I chose to work hard. I said people tried to punish ambitious women by making normal mentorship look suspicious. Jonah nodded slowly, like he had heard speeches before. He asked if I had anything I wanted to report. I said no. He thanked me and said the company wanted a safe culture for everyone. I forced a smile and said I agreed. When I left the room, I saw Brad standing down the hall by the elevator, talking to Jonah like they were friendly. Brad looked at me for a second, then looked away. I felt something drop in my chest, but I told myself it was still fine. I told myself I was the valuable one, and he was the replaceable one. That evening, I got home later than I should have. The house smelled like pasta sauce. Evan had cooked. Mira was at the table coloring, and she looked up and asked if I was staying for bedtime. I said yes, too fast, like a promise could fix everything. Evan asked if HR met with me. I froze. Then I asked why he would know that. He said he could guess because HR meetings were not rare. He said my company had rules like any other place. His voice was even, and I hated how calm he sounded. I asked if he talked to someone at my work. He said no. I asked if he was trying to ruin me. He said he was trying to keep the house stable. I told him stability was not possible if he kept acting like a stranger. He asked if I wanted him to act like a fool instead. I said I wanted him to fight for me. He asked what fighting meant. I said it meant showing emotion. I said it meant being scared to lose me. Evan looked at Mira, then back at me, and he said Mira did not need to see adults perform fear. I tried another angle. I told him he was punishing me with silence. I told him he was using Mira as a shield. I told him his calm was cruel. He asked why I needed him to explode so badly. I said I did not. I said I just wanted honesty. He asked if I was ready to be honest. I said I was always honest. He nodded once, like he was filing the answer away. After Mira went to bed, I walked into the study without knocking. Evan was at his desk with his laptop open. The screen showed a plain folder view, clean and organized. I saw two main folders again, Archive A and Archive B. A small USB drive sat near his keyboard, labeled with a date in black marker. He slid it into a drawer when he noticed me. I asked what he was doing. He said he was organizing household records. I laughed and said that was new. He said it was overdue. I asked if he was planning something. He said he was preparing for reality. I told him he was being dramatic. He said he was being careful. I said he was trying to scare me. He said he did not need to scare me. He needed to protect Mira from chaos. That word chaos made me flinch, because it sounded like he meant me. I stepped closer and said he was acting like I was a danger. He said he was acting like our life was changing, whether I admitted it or not. I asked if he was going to leave. He did not answer right away. He looked at the desk, then at me, like he was choosing words that could not be twisted. I told him if he left, everyone would know he failed as a husband. I told him my mother would tell the whole family. I told him he would look weak. I wanted him to react. I wanted anger. I wanted a shout I could point to later. Evan stayed still. He asked if I was trying to bait him. I said no. I said he was paranoid. He said he was done talking in circles. Then he stood up, calm as ever, and he said he would handle this properly. The next day, I walked into the office like I still owned the air. I wore my sharp blazer and my best smile. I told myself this was a misunderstanding that confidence could fix. I told myself Evan would calm down once he saw I would not bend. In the office tower lobby, people moved around me like water, but I felt eyes anyway. Nina texted and asked if I was okay. I said I was great and busy. I saw Brad near the coffee kiosk, laughing with two directors. He looked right through me. A man in a plain suit stepped into my path. He asked if I was Fleda Harrington. I said yes and asked who he was. He said he had legal documents for me. I laughed once, like it was a prank, and said he had the wrong person. He repeated my name and held out an envelope. My hands went cold. I looked around and realized we were not alone. People pretended to check phones, but they slowed down. The man said I was being served and that I should read the first pages. I grabbed the envelope and told him he was embarrassing me. He said he was just doing his job. I opened it enough to see Evan's name and the word petition. I saw dissolution of marriage and lines about temporary orders. I saw a schedule for Mira's weeks and a note about money rules that sounded like a lock clicking shut. I heard my own breath, fast and thin. I told myself Evan was overreacting. I told myself this was a scare tactic. but the papers looked real, not emotional. My phone buzzed. Evan had sent a message. He said he would only talk about Mira and logistics, and he said I should direct everything else to the proper process. He did not insult me. He did not beg. That made it worse. Jonah from HR appeared like he had been waiting. He asked me to come with him. I said I could not right now. He said it was important and immediate. I asked if Brad requested it. Jonah said it was HR's decision. Inside the HR room, Jonah said a complaint had been filed and they needed my statement. He said my promotion announcement was paused pending review. I said I was being targeted because I was successful. He asked if I wanted to respond to specific allegations. I said there were no allegations that mattered. Then